When people look in this book, I want them to reflect and remember those moments, learn about my story, and ultimately I'm hoping that they get inspired to think about themselves as their own astronaut.
Do you remember growing up dreaming of becoming an astronaut? I know not everybody did, obviously, but that was the kind of dream that wasn't out of the realms of an answer you might receive if you asked a bunch of 6-year-olds in a classroom, what do you want to do when you grow up? You might get, I want to be an astronaut. I want to explore, see universes. These days it'll be more like, I want to be a YouTuber. Or could I be a TikToker? What's happened to kids, eh? Oh no, Neil. Several marks down if you're about to do an In My Day story. In my day it was so tough that you didn't go just file save, you had to reach for a floppy disk, so you did. Make sure you shoved it in the computer, right way round. Spend 10 minutes saving a simple document, eject it, put it in your back pocket, forget it was there, snap a day's work in half as you sat down in bus on the way home from work. Floppy disks, Neil. Luxury. In my day, we used to take notes on tablet, never mind computer. You scratch pictures into it using your bare knuckles. So you did, until they were red raw, and you'd run out of limbs to write on. Hang on, here comes a cyclist. Barney, over here, come here. A cyclist and a weir all at the same time. Hiya. You ruined my joke there, Barnes. I'm digressing already. I'm getting very close to going into 4 Yorkshiremen sketch from Monty Python. So let me make a different kind of sketch. That's a good link, Barnes. A sketchbook sketch. Show you where I am right now for the show page, and we'll get back on track with our thoughts. Barnes, here we go. Look at this. You'll be impressed at it. This is 2 years of dog training. This hups. There we go. He'll sit down on a bench. I'll put the letters down. Wait there for a second while I make a photo, and then you can have one of your treats, and we'll do some ASMR. 140th shutter speed. Don't bark. I'm making a photo. This is a quiet moment. We talk a lot about reflection today, okay? Give me a chance. ISO 160. There we go, sketchbook to start the day. Come on, have one of these. There we go, good boy. There we go, perfect. All right, Kamal X is my guest today. He is a black astronaut, and that's the title of the book that's about to be, well, it's been published, but there's release dates coming up. Pre-sales look very good. They look like they've done a sterling trade, but the missions he goes on, the planets he visits, are not really light years away. They're actually much, much closer to us on terra firma, right here on Earth. But at a time of such upheaval as the last few years have certainly been, he might as well have been photographing places from a far-off galaxy, seeking strange new worlds, because they were so unrecognisable, weren't they, from life as we know it, Jim? And he's my guest today, 403 episodes in, a show where we walk and make pictures, photographically sketchbooking our time together each week, enjoying the letters and inspirational stories you've sent in, and listening back to special studio conversations with guests from around the world. And today I guessed a guest that's, sort of out of this world.
Today on the Photowalk.
It just seemed like the world was brighter inside that camera. Like, it just seemed like you really can create narrative and create memories at a different level. I'm really confused now. It was better when I was coasting and I was just a normal kid. Now you're telling me I have purpose. What does purpose mean? I don't want us to get too caught up in just what happened in the past. We need to learn from the past, but I think we also need to be going towards the future. Like taking Instagram off my phone and only using it when I go on my computer, for example. And that also helps me as a creative, like as a photographer. You should trying to create something that's who you are and different and unique as it relates to who you are. And I think if you're sitting there looking at images all day, how much of that is you?
That's Kamal X, award-winning New York City photographer, sharing thoughts about his new book, Black Astronaut. The stars belong to the people. And before I give you a flavour of today's mailbag as well, thank you to our extra milers and mpb.com who sponsor this show and keep it here week on week. mpb.com is a website where you can safely buy, sell and trade quality used photo and video gear online and be a part of the circular economy. Now, if you're buying, you get peace of mind because they provide a 6-month guarantee. And if you're trading or selling, MPB make the whole thing easy. They send a courier direct to your house to pick up the kit on a day that you say, and once it's arrived back at the warehouse and they've gone through the checks to make sure it's all been graded properly when you checked it in online, you get paid direct into your account really quickly. mpb.com, I think it's a really easy to use website. I use them myself, and it's helping photographers like me, like you, to buy quality used kit or sell gear you no longer need to free up cash and give others a chance to make their stories. Go to mpb.com and there'll be a link on today's show page as always. Right, on the show, the shortest letter received leads probably to, maybe one of the longer-ish monologues, helped really by the notion that in the UK at least, it seems photography can now be prescribed to assist in the treatment of stress and anxiety and PTSD. Prescribed as in, yes, professionally prescribed. Why Photographing for Fun and social media as bed partners have released a newfound passion for making pictures. There's a rumble in the jungle, quite literally, later on. A postcard from the fall. I'll hang my head in shame as I reveal the mistake I made last week. The strange wee beasties that frequent the Scottish Highlands. Graffiti pictures and a trip to London, and Croatian dawns that, you can pretty much drink in. Plus, it being the first Friday of the month, it is Assignment Week, a challenge to make a picture which is being set for this month, the month of October, by the fashion and portrait photographer Craig Fleming. Right, shall we walk? Checklist out. Coffee, check. Garibaldi's, check. Walking boots, check. I'm tempted to say astronaut suit. No, I don't have that one with me. Not this week. All right, let's walk.
Have you noticed how svelte I'm looking? Come on. Look at me. It's new Neil. How have I dropped these pounds? How do you think? I don't know, Neil. You taken up running? No. I'd like to again, actually, but I've got my knee joints to think of right now. Running's probably not the perfect way to lose the pounds. No, try again. Is it the intermittent fasting thing, see? Very good, but no. I have been dabbling in that, to be fair. A couple of 12-12s, which is easy, really. 16, is it 12-16s or 16-12s? I do the same thing when I'm talking about photographic prints. Is it 8-10 or 10-8s? They're a bit more challenging, but no, not that. As of yet, I can't blame it on that. I can see my other listener is fidgeting now, getting impatient, threatening to go away and listen to, I don't know, Diary of a CEO or something. So I'll tell you, braces, teeth braces. What, at your age, Neil? No, not me. No, teeth braces for our Jack, our eldest. At 15, just at the time the preening really starts of a morning, and my expensive aftershave seemingly evaporates. Have you noticed that in your household with a 15-year-old? I don't know where it goes. It's braces time. So, because it's all a bit new, and there is somewhat I can only describe, there's art as much as treatment going on in his mouth, down to colour coordinating the links that join the teeth together with his school jumper. Can I have the dark blue ones? Yeah, of course you can. But because of this, the diet for the week of a custom has it's had a trickle-down effect to the whole family. And we're living on soup or porridge. That's become, seemingly it's become breakfast, lunch and tea. And we're all joining the cause, you see, to help this whole feel normal thing. Though, frankly, cream of mushroom soup at 7:30 in the morning, that's a bit strange. It's not the best way to start the morning. I'm seeing food mirages. Is that it's a KFC in the distance, Barnes. Is that a KFC? Come on. KFC. We're on Team Jack's side for the next five days more, I think, something like that. We're in for the win, as they say. Anyway, let's start with letters, shall we? And because today mental health is not too insignificant part of our conversation with my studio guest, Kamal X, I'm starting with it's the shortest letter received of late, but I'm going to expand. This one is from Alin Sorensen in America land. 8 words, if you don't include the name in the sign-off. Not even a Dear Neil, Alin. But it is to the point, for good reason. Stand by, blink and you'll miss it. The letter read, I love this, wish America would follow suit. And it followed with a link Alan sent, and it went to a piece in digitalcameraworld.com, which I will of course leave a link to in the show notes today on the page for episode 403. I always have a show page where you can see the pictures that are sent in by those who've written letters with pictures in, and also links, and often, probably will be today as well, I'm sure, some useful films that relate to stuff what we talk about. We're in a bit of a silly season in the UK right now, politically that is. It's so-called conference season, where the parties all stand on stage, and instead of telling us what they're going to do, they choose to make headlines by spouting what the other party are planning to do, but aren't actually planning to do at all. I don't want to get political with you, but you'll wryly smile if you've been following the news. Meat tax, say no more. So when I read the headline of the piece by Callum Carter that's linked to here, I was left thinking, hang about. He's either been doing a different kind of cream of mushroom soup in the morning, if you know what I mean, the mushrooms on the other side of the forest, or this article that Alan sent in is all a bit clickbaity. Here's the headline, which is actually longer than Alan's letter. Photography to be made, this is the headline, photography to be made available on prescription to improve mental health in the UK. Now, this is very interesting to me because I prescribed myself, notionally that is, to this idea, the concept being not mushroom but chicken soup to the soul for quite a while now. This idea of mental health being aided by photographic pursuits. It's the result of presenting this podcast and listening to guests talk about it, and letters extol the virtues of a walk in the woods with a camera. I'll read just a bit from Callum's piece, and then I encourage you through the link that I shall leave to read the rest, because even if you can't join in with this because you're in a different country, essentially you'll still understand the benefits of what you're already doing, actually. Photography, says the piece, is now available on prescription for people struggling with their mental health as part of a project launched by Wex Photo Video and supported by the National Academy of Social Prescribing, NASP, in the UK this is. The project aims to help those struggling with mental health issues such as PTSD, anxiety and depression, and the idea is to boost self-esteem, reduce stress and combat loneliness through the power of photography. I often say it's a superpower, don't I? The prescription will include access to photography workshops, online resources and photography equipment provided by Wex Photo Video. Now, for the cynical, and I'm not sure my other listener looked over their bifocals at me then, but there'll be this call of, jumping on the bandwagon, the health bandwagon for sales. But, unless we get socially and forward-thinking commercial values, where does it even start, really? Who presses the buttons to make it happen? So bravo to those that are, commercial or otherwise. Due to the fantastic results, social prescribing has become more popular as a way to help improve mental health. Social prescribing is the term for when a medical practitioner, such as a GP, a doctor, a therapist, prescribes social activities as a way to enrich a patient's life. In the UK, this has involved the prescription of, get this list, fishing, physical activities, and spending time in nature. It's not a long piece, and I'm in danger of reading far too much and not leaving you with the joy of a coffee Garibaldi and 20 minutes going down various rabbit holes and links in the piece, so I'll say no more. But thank you, Alan, for your short missive. And in a week where I've actually had a few conversations with people face to face about their mental health travels with a camera, this is very, very timely. And for those who are extra milers, our guest speaker on Tuesday's live Zoom is Eric Joseph, who is presenting a study, a piece of work that he's making now away from his usual university work about this very subject. Very flatteringly, if there is such a word. Can you add "ly" to flattering? Very flatteringly, this was really born of the conversations. There's the Pinstriped Express, 8:15 on the dot. Very flatteringly, it was born of the conversations, really, or from the conversations our guests have brought to the table, such as Ian MacDonald from Canada, the former paramedic who used photography to help with his PTSD, suffered as a result of the scenes he saw and he visited as a special paramedic. And I know I've played this piece before, but I'd like to do it again because I think it fits very well, not only with Alan's short letter and a link, more importantly, to that piece that I just read a part from, but also to the subject we talk and get, extremely passionate about. This idea that photography, that walking, that being at one with nature, being in forests, forest bathing, that'll be the first of two mentions for that today. These things that really are good for our mental health, our mental well-being. So here's a snippet from a conversation I had with Ian MacDonald about just that.
One of the things for me that really changed after I went through my PTSD and all of the counseling that helped me through it was a recognition of the importance of mindfulness and the importance of really being in the moment. And that's a catchphrase. It's a buzzword that we use nowadays. But the reality is, if I look back on my life, I don't know if I was always truly in the moment. It's hard to be present. And I think we've all had the experiences where maybe we're watching TV and answering emails and trying to be attentive to our family at the same time, and it doesn't work. And I think that creates an internal point of anxiety. And when I went through my counseling, we spent a lot of time on that, on the importance of being mindful and living in the moment and really just experiencing what's happening around you. And photography, much like playing guitar or any other form of art, really complements that because it's a task where you can be just focused. You've got a composition in front of you, you've got a moment in front of you, and you really can just take the time to create the best image that you see in your mind. And everything else, all of the noise, all of the day-to-day clutter, it just isn't in your mind at that time. And I think that's really where photography helped me in a great way through the PTSD.
The words, the voice of Ian MacDonald. I wish you could see this. What are you doing, Barney? Are you walking all the way in the water to the end of this walk? There's a part along this kind of a shelf just along the part of this river that I walk, the Kennet and Avon Canal, and it stretches. This shallow bit here, the beach as we call it week after week, stretches quite a long way along here. And I've got this feeling that Barnes is just going to walk along the whole length. There's a shelf there, Barnes. Tell you, if you go any further, you'll be swimming in the canal. Don't do it. He's trying to reach. He knows it. He's trying to reach for a feather. Leave the feather alone. Leave the feather alone. Put the feather down. My thanks, yes, again to Ian MacDonald. It's always a joy to speak with Ian and understand his approach to photography and how making pictures actually has this sort of holistic, rounded reality in so many people's lives. Not just for those who listen to this show and share, but the millions who make their pictures every single day. Barnes, look at you. I did a camera club talk on Tuesday just gone, that is, in Brighton on the south coast, and I'll share more about that. I made some recordings of my day out too with, just a few actually. It didn't turn into a long story as such, but I did make a few recordings with extra miler and friend, I like to think, Sean Edwards, Anyway, at the club event in the evening where I talked about putting sound into your pictures, your still pictures, yes, there were a few faces in the crowd. David, who booked me to talk and a listener to this show, he got up actually and expressed how photography has helped him get through the tough times, particularly during the UK lockdown. We talked about, I know we've mentioned this a few times, but the diving in bushes thing, when somebody would be running, we'd go out for our walks, and I'm looking at this path now, this is a perfect example of it. You'd be walking along, and there'd be a runner coming the other way, and you'd squeeze yourself against the bush, take a deep breath, and you wouldn't expel until they were at least half a mile down the path after you. Neil, is that possible? Well, you know what I mean. Right. Letters. Into the mailbag we dive. Here is one from Mark Bagent. I was about to say newish writer, but that's, the months and the years go past so quickly, don't they, Mark? That's not really true. Although there should be a pin badge, shouldn't there? When you write in. Sam, I think it was Sam, who mentioned we should have done presidential style pin badges. Probably a little bit easier to send those out in multiple numbers than the show flasks. Hi Neil, listening to your podcast through this summer has prompted me to finally take some photos. I resurrected an old Facebook page and have steadily been making and uploading photographs. This was because of a conversation about should our images be seen. Mark, this will start a whole new debate amongst the don't let the evil Facebook take your pictures clan. A very surly clan they are. They must wear a particular type of tartan with sprocket holes in unfortunate places. I know before I run the risk of sounding too flippant, it is something that is a consideration. And there are people that worry about what happens to their images online. But I don't know. This is the way I think about it. Unless I'm Peter Lick, L-I-K, on an upside-down pyramid sales drive to sell my pictures at 1 million, I guess scarcity of my images doesn't really serve me or anybody, does it? I want to introduce my creativity into the world. There's no I was here, I made this contribution to a picture collecting dust on an old DVD in the sideboard, is there really? No. You may have some thoughts on that, of course. I'm open to your thoughts. Send them in to stories@photowalk.show, please. As photography, says Mark, is now a hobby, all the pressures that I had of being a pro have been lifted, and I've started to photograph what catches my eye. Nothing planned. To be frank, getting started without a customer to please has been tough, so these images are not much to look at, but they are my scrapbook images. Mark, I am now looking at you over the bifocals. I don't actually have, but if I did, you would see my earnest look of disapproval. Only I am allowed to be self-derogatory about my sketchbooking. That doesn't seem fair, Neil, I know. I'd probably not have picked up the camera again, says Mark, trying to escape my stare, without listening to your podcast. So thank you, Neil. No, thank you, Mark. Some scrapbook images here, directionless and no artistic merit, but that doesn't matter much to me now. Photography is just for fun, which is actually very, very freeing. All the best from Mark. I will leave a link on the show page today so you can go and see the photographs that Mark has made. I'll also, because he's kindly allowed me, you allowed everybody to download them. See, that takes the debate even further. He's kindly allowed me to download some, so I've put some on the show page today. There's somebody there out with their metal detector. I'm fascinated by metal detectorists. I think that might make an interesting interview one day. What, Neil? I'll be out that week. I'm washing my hair. Right. My guest, it's time. My guest this week. When I was introduced to Kamal X's work, I was taken immediately by two things, notwithstanding his fabulous work, of course. That'll be a third thing, and perhaps the most important. His, stand by for the J word now, journey, photographically and mentally, because as you'll hear, there were several life-changing experiences that brought about significant changes in his world and his outlook. And spoiler alert, I'm afraid, the first part of our conversation is just about him, really, not about his photography in any, with any great volume, or certainly not. And it's not about the book we're due to talk about either. That's coming up in the second part. It's about Kamal, and it felt to me as we talked, one of those conversations where people really just, I don't know, they kind of work through their stuff. And I'm always taken when a guest feels comfortable enough to do that on the show. So that's the first part, really. And then the second thing that really struck me about Kamal was this genius book. We have a conversation about a book called Black Astronaut, The Stars Belong to the People, which is a title, and it really piqued my curiosity. And in some respects, it's autobiographical as much as journalistic. This book, it turned out to be a concept, an idea, well, a metaphor, really, for the astronaut thing that's in the title of today's show and the title of his book. Is absolutely delicious. I like that word. Though the subject matter within the book is indeed challenging in places. But let me not do more of a spoiler at this point. I've probably said too much already. Here is my conversation with Kamal X. Part 1 of 2 parts today.
Kamal, you say photography found you at a time in your life where you felt confused and voiceless.
Yeah, great question. So I want to say I'm 37 now. I was 27 actually. Wow. Yeah, unfortunately, my best friend transitioned from having colon cancer. And at this time, I wasn't doing photography or anything. I was actually a life coach and a personal trainer, and I worked in real estate.
Right.
When he transitioned, my life went upside down. This is my best friend.
This is Andrew Kelly, isn't it?
Andrew Kelly, yeah. And once he transitioned, one of the things that he really loved about me was my freedom spirit. He said that I love to travel, and he was claustrophobic. So it was like, to him, it was like the greatest thing ever that I can get on a plane and go to Vegas or go to Miami he just was like, wow, So what I decided to do was decide to take it times 10. Because I feel like he would be proud of me for that, right? It was a way of me traveling with him in a different realm. So I said, I'm gonna not travel the world, but I went on one backpacking trip to Southeast Asia, where I went to Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos for 40 days. This is something, backpacking was not a part of my culture. I didn't grow up with any uncles or fathers. No one was doing this. So this was like a brand new frontier. For me, it was like, I want to be extremely uncomfortable. And I feel like I needed to do that to figure this out, this grief, this anger, this pain, this rage, all these things that I was feeling. So I hope that me traveling like that would bring me closer to my best friend and allow me to have some peace.
It's a courageous way to find peace after grief. And at this stage, as you say, this wasn't a photographic experience. I know it's spiritual, but not photographic. But that was about to change, wasn't it? Pick up the story on how you found photography, or it found you.
Yeah, there was another traveler that I met while I was traveling. We're on a volcano in Ecuador, and she goes, "What do you shoot with?" And at that point, I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, "Shoot with? What are you talking about?" And we were sleeping on a volcano overnight, and I said I had a 4S iPhone. She showed me she had I think she had a Canon 6D.
Right.
And it's just like, this is full frame. She was explaining to me the differences, and she showed me her picture versus what I had on that 4S. And I immediately knew, okay, this is a whole different ballgame. And she's like, yeah, you're traveling the world. You're seeing all these amazing things. You deserve to be able to capture these elements. Because at this point, it went from that trip, I kind of fast forward a bit. So it went from that trip for 40 days, and I ended up traveling the world for 5 years.
Yeah.
And now, at that point, I did a book called The Quest Supreme. Which
that was your first book,
to,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, first book that was dedicated to my journey, my quest with my brother that was no longer with me. And in that book, I did over 40 countries. So halfway within that trip, or that journey, I would say, when I met Anna, who said the whole, camera thing in Ecuador, I picked up a camera. And at this point, I was kind of very much more comfortable with traveling. And I finally got my feet, if you will. And I started to travel in a different frequency. I was looking for challenges that made sense to me versus just going places just to say you went.
Yeah.
As I had the camera with me, it was like a perfect marriage.
So Drew's loss really was the catalyst for you traveling the world, wasn't it? And then eventually picking up the camera. Do you remember looking through the box for the first time, looking through the eyepiece? Do you remember your feeling?
Oh, yeah. I remember it was like an instrument. It was like playing a flute or like the piano or a saxophone. And I remember the first time I looked through it, we were in Peru, and it was really amazing. Like, I just remember feeling like, wow, like it just seemed like the world was brighter inside that camera. Like, it just seemed like you really can create narrative and create memories in a different level that was different than what I was doing. And also the intentionality of using a camera. Picking up a phone and taking a photo is not the same as when you have the camera with you.
Yeah, I've always thought that with looking at the back of a screen. And I know there's cameras that do this. I know peers of mine that use cameras where they look at the back, and I think, no, if my eyes squeezed up against the eyepiece, that's when I feel like I'm in this. When you've described it, you're in this different world.
Definitely, and you have this ultimate. It's like you're in control, and you get your chance to say what you want to say.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I immediately understood. And I love movies too, so I also watching so many movies. It also kind of, I think, also gave me like my training wheels of like, once the camera got it from me, it was like all these things. It was the perfect meeting of the mind, so to speak, internally. And it was just like, okay, cool. But again, it was that challenge and that wanting to continue to learn and get somewhere. And once I started getting some traction and people started telling me, you're an artist and things like that. And I was like, I'm not an artist, and it kind of like, I just kept going though. And doors started to open. And then I said, let me take this seriously. Yeah. And then once I did that, everything kind of shifted completely.
I've read and followed various websites and things when I've been reading about you. And Drew appears quite a lot. And excuse me for being a bit crass now, but
no, it's fine.
Has the photography thing, has that put the grief to bed with Drew? Because I know he still figures a lot in your life.
Yeah, so it definitely has helped tremendously. Yeah. And grief is one of those things. I know of anyone that's experienced it. It doesn't get healed. It's never done. It has its peaks and valleys. But I definitely think it was my way of expressing and experiencing it for me, and I've had other ways. I've gone to therapy. I've done other things too. But I think for me, photography is one of the more powerful ways for me, because it's like when I take a photo and I make a Quest Supreme, or I come up with a book like Black Astronaut, which is also dedicated to him. Yeah. It's like something that's in the world that people are now experiencing. And the inner workings of the reason for it that's for me to have, but it's also a beautiful gift to know that whether I'm traveling the world, whether I'm putting out books, whether I'm getting deals or whatever's happening with photography and my artistry, it's rooted in our relationship. So I feel like that gives me a piece that I would be trying to find somewhere else. And that might change over the years. That might shift to something else. But for now, it's been a beautiful experience, and it gives me a lot of peace.
So who's Kamal X then? Is this the DJing days as well? I only know one other famous X, and that's Malcolm, and that's not a bad one to be associated with, is it really?
Yeah, Malcolm X is Kamal X is he's a freedom person that is all about, being honest with who he truly is and only doing things that really move him. Yeah. That's something I learned a long time ago. When I was first started shooting, there was a photographer that was like, why do you take these pictures of things that you don't care about? And then you just take up SD card space. You got stuff like, just take pictures that move you. So now I kind of brought it into my artistry too. I only do things that really move me, because if it doesn't move me and I put something out and people love it, I still feel empty at the end of the day.
I'm going to ask a horribly practical question, because I can almost hear my late mother and father speaking in my ear here. So, because I'm when you talk about feeling, it directly connects with what we talk about so much on this program. But I can hear my mum and dad in my ears saying, well, that's fine, darling, but freedom doesn't necessarily, and feeling doesn't necessarily pay the bills. And I was thinking, when you've done these amazing travels around the world, how it's practically all come together, because you seem to have lived the dream to me.
That's the interesting way to put it, because I think everything has its balance. There is an element of it that I'm extremely proud of and thankful for sure. But there's also a lot of pain, struggle, experiences that are very hard to face, that I've had to face outside of losing my best friend. I had a near-death experience at 17 years old where I got an unfortunate situation where like 4 other people were trying to kill me and hit it in the head repeatedly with a car jack. and somehow survived that. And this is in 17 years old, senior year of high school. So at an early age, I was really put in a situation where I had to question myself in terms of who am I? Why am I here? And what does it even matter? Because when something like that happens to you at 17, when they tell you you're supposed to die, you should have been brain damaged and you're a miracle case. And you're like, well, why me? It doesn't even make you feel more empowered. It makes you feel less because you're like, I'm really confused now. It was better when I was coasting and I was just a normal kid. Now you're telling me I have purpose. What does purpose mean at that age? So the dream part of it, like we know what a photo, I think I heard this in one of your episodes. You were saying there's so much that goes into just getting that one photo. You just see the photo, but there's a whole story that goes behind getting to that moment. And that's kind of what I feel about my books, my artistry, who I am today. And it's also in my book. The intro is about forgiveness, where I go deep into what actually happened to me at 17 and how that relates to this concept of Black astronaut that I'm coming up with. So I've had some things that I'm very thankful for. Real estate has been very great for me. That's been a lot of how I've been able to manage and, fund a lot of the things that I'm
financing
doing.
Through the real estate. Yeah.
Yeah. But man, it costs something. Yeah. It's been a pretty penny. So, and that again goes into my whole ideology behind the fact that you should just be true to yourself, because sometimes we can get too caught up comparing ourselves to others and assuming things about others. And that's another things I learned about photography too. Don't go into a scene assuming anything. Give everybody deserves a chance to show you who they are, to express who they are. But if you go in there assuming something, you could be missing the entire scene. And that's something that I also learned. That was actually one of my motivations. I hope I'm not moving forward in this conversation, but that was one of my motivations in doing Black Astronaut, because of the pictures that I saw on television, on CNN when I was still in the house. I felt like that wasn't a true depiction of what was actually happening.
Well, when you were in your house watching CNN, I assume we're talking about during COVID-19 and the world shutdown that we had. I want to rewind a little bit. I listened to your podcast that you made in 2020. You released it May 28th. It was an episode called George Floyd Finding Answers. It was a program about questions in many ways. I think I was left with more question marks than I was left with answers. And one of those was, should we get angry? I know we're going to talk about your book in a moment that covers this topic, but at the time, how did you personally feel? You didn't seem sure. There was a part of the program where I thought you were suggesting, should I retire out of this world? Should I just go and close the doors, or do I? Well, the podcast seemed to be a bit of a catharsis for you. It was certainly a platform at that time where you could talk things through.
It was definitely very real time.
Yeah,
that wasn't. That was from the heart, and it was a very similar to grief. Like there's no definition that you can really put on these things. Like it's deeper. Words can't really express some of the things that are happening emotionally with us, especially deeper things that are very complex. So seeing George Floyd, the video, and this is after seeing what happened with Ahmaud Arbery, and this is after already being locked down. It was just like this. I can't take this anymore. Yeah. But I'm also at an age in my life where I understand the point of rage and anger, and that's definitely valid. But I also don't want to do anything that will put me in a position that I look back at, I should have handled that differently. Yeah. I don't want to react in a way that I will be ashamed of down the road. Like I said, what happened to me at 17 years old, a lot of that was just rage and anger without thinking about repercussions of how I choose to go about this. Sometimes there's a smarter way. Sometimes there's a way that actually will make change versus just going and yelling. Sometimes that might do something for you, but there's different avenues that we can all take. And that's kind of what I was getting at in the episode, because again, watching that, it put me in a position where I knew I had to do something. I knew, as a Black man in America and a photographer, it's like there's so many people that felt like they couldn't do anything. There's so many people that if they wanted to help that situation, they couldn't, because we're stuck in lockdown, and this is just such a crazy situation in Minnesota. And I knew, okay, you're a photographer. You actually can do something. Yeah. So the choice is, do you risk your life and go outside? And this is the beginning of COVID, so we didn't know about how dangerous it would be if you would, or do you stay in the house and just go on Instagram and do a bunch of posts. And no offense to that either, but I knew for me, I was going to risk it all.
I don't know how it felt to you, but to me, and I found this very hard to unpick at the time with my kids, there was one thing after another, after another, after another. There was COVID, there was the anger about that, there was the mistrust of the media. There was, of course, George Floyd and the pictures that came from that. Photographers were being arrested. We spoke to one on the show. You had the Trump debacle going on. And you were questioning why people couldn't understand the idea of lockdowns or social distancing on another one of your podcasts. It was a real way for you. It felt to me like the podcasts were a real form of catharsis. You needed that, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely. Because again, you're in lockdown.
Yeah.
And at that point, I just moved to Oakland. I was there. I moved four months before lockdowns for COVID hit. I just moved, so I didn't even have a lot of friends that I really even knew.
Oh.
So when I was in an apartment, and that was it. All my friends were really in New York, New Jersey, Atlanta. So I really was isolated. So there were a long period of time before I started seeing people, so this was another way to connect. And again, one of the things that was really, and I think a lot of people may have felt this in the beginning of COVID, was you didn't know if this was going to be it. You really didn't know. You didn't know if you had COVID, if you got it through the hallway, and this is, again, before we got a lot of the information. You didn't know. You start coughing, you feel like you might have a sinus infection. You think you might be in the hospital the next day. So a lot of it was also, I want to make these days count the best I can as I'm in this apartment by myself. And again, the honesty, that's just a big part of who I am and what I try to promote, is just being honest about what I feel.
And Kamal X returns very soon. My thanks to you if you're sending in your thoughts about walking and photography right now. I keep saying it, but I will get round to your hiking letters. There's some cracking ones in there. They don't have to have photos. If you're sending photos in, fantastic. For our Wish You Were Here feature, our postcards, or where you live, where you've been, trips that you've made, photo essays, they're making a comeback in the winter as well. Send them to stories@photowalk.show, stories@photowalk.show. And if you can manage to optimize the images to 2,500 pixels wide, you are an absolute star. But if you can't do that, don't worry. Are you about to say, I'll do the heavy lifting, Neil? I will do... There should be a jingle, a sung jingle. That's what proper radio shows have. I will do the heavy lifting. Don't sing, Neil. Let's do a brace of Wish You Were Here's, and then I'd like you to meet a very special guest. Well, they're all very special, obviously. And we'll start with, look, it's Miller time. Mike of the Miller clan of Canada Land. Dear Neil, a postcard. Which Mike I will share on the show page. You did the heavy lifting for me on this one. I appreciate that. Fall colours, says Mike, are in full swing up in central Ontario and Canada Land at the moment. There's a waterfall that I visit May till October. Yesterday, the weather was perfect and there was no wind. I went there before sunrise and stayed for about an hour making numerous images to stitch together to make this panorama. The image that I've attached is a composite of 22 images that I made using my 30mm lens, crop sensor at f11, ISO 320 and 0.4 seconds shutter speed. All of which is making me feel I should have been doing more sketchbooking today. Second week in a row, I've let you down. The sun is backlighting the image and is rising beyond the top right-hand side of the frame. Wish you were here to see the fall colours in all their glory. I wish I was there as well. See? I need that transporter, don't I? Best regards from Mike. Thank you, Mike. I will put that on the show page today. Amazing work. And it's, your post-prod journey to get the photograph has completely shamed my plonk camera down, engage ND filter in body and pray that it doesn't overexpose at half a second's approach. That's an official term, by the way. Look it up. I tell you what, Mike, this is certainly no sketchbook image. And the fictitious turny around postcard stand that sits in my fictitious dream coffee shop called Black and White, well, this postcard, boof, it's going right at the top of that. And then I got a second sound postcard. This is fortuitous timing because I'm walking past one of the many locks that I walk past when I come out for my walks You can hear that, can't you? The second postcard is a sound postcard. So this one I can play to you. And it's from, drum roll please, my mother-in-law, who is currently volunteering in Africa on environmental projects. And she sent me, let's clear this, the water sound in the background because I want you to hear it properly. We've got the sound of water and the sound of Barney trying to get another treat out of me. Barnes, it's not working, mate. So here is my mother-in-law. She's in Africa at the moment on this environmental project volunteering thing that she does with my father-in-law as well, I might add. She sent me this dawn sound. Isn't that incredible? Listen, there's a few birds, I know. Not quite sure what they are. And I can quite clearly hear, as surely you can as well, my mother-in-law's rumbly tummy. Listen, she sounds like she hasn't eaten for weeks. See? Postcards on a podcast. They can be audio as much as they can be pictures. Send them in one more time. stories@photowalk.show, and I'll be featuring yours. If it's a picture, on the show page, of course. Let me make a sketchbooker. I've not been making enough sketchbookers. It's another one of those weeks where the sky is a bit bleh. It's a bleh sky. Nothing particularly, there's no feature in it. And I always feel a bit, I might have to get over that because we're about to enter season when it comes to weather. But I'll make a picture just looking down the canal. Hang on. Barney, come here, come on. I might put a few of my Brighton ones on the show page this week, because that was a photo walk. Even though it's really on the extra mile this week, I could put a few. I mean, it was a nice photo walk from earlier during the week. 1/60th, shutter speed, F4. There we go. A sketchbook. Yeah, I might do that, because I can only put so many pictures really on the Patreon page, the way that the show page is designed there. So maybe I'll put some up on the on this show page for our episode today. Right, did you notice? Here's a did you notice competition now. Did you notice the glaringly obvious error of last week's show? Well, just the one, Neil. I'm afraid I counted 5. It would have been 6 had the spin dryer not been sounding like it was spooling up for a takeoff on runway 27 right. All right, smart Alec. Yeah, but there was one major, glaringly obvious mistake that I made. Do you know which it was? Which it was? It was the dates of Scotland 24 for our retreat. We're going back to Scotland a 3rd time now. Hey, we must love Scotland. Of course we do. Let me let the Pinstriped Express go by. Oh, that one's got... somebody got into the yard and spray painted that with very different colours and words to the decal that was probably intended. Yes, the dates of Scotland 24, I got them wrong. I said January, which of course is wrong because we're in the Gambia this coming January 2024 on expedition. So it's a perfect excuse to say and have the opportunity to say for a second time, the retreat is back. We love Scotland. And next year, in September, repeat, in September, we arrive Sunday the 8th of September, repeat, September, with departures on Saturday the 14th of, guess what? Is it September, Neil? You're getting this now, yes. We'll be back in the dark room. We'll be going on some lochside walks. We'll be forest bathing. See, second mention, which is being in the incredible forestry, not laying on the floor in our bikinis with a thistle causing a rash, just in case you worried. We'll be learning to creatively write better. Yes, we've got a writer coming in for that. We'll be learning and talking about how to include sound in our still picture stories. We'll be eating good food, celebrating togetherness and discussing our pictures of an evening. And also we'll be visiting a haggis sanctuary where these cute wee beasties, the lucky ones that is, live out their days feeding on the finest neeps, tatties and lochwater. One of those features is, of course, a wee small fibby. Can you guess which one? It's the haggis, isn't it, Neil? Is it? They're not small. They're actually as big as a bear, aren't they? Yeah, see? Nothing gets by you. Now, the web page will go up this weekend. See, I've said it, I have to do it. So for those several weeks behind with episodes, that means it's already there. Now, 3 places. Well, it was certainly 2. Is it 3 now? I'm sure it's 3. 3 have gone. Of the 6 places, they've gone. So we're half full already, and we haven't even really advertised it properly on the website. The web page is still in construction. So, you know what that means? What's that, Neil? I'll tell you, that you should always make mistakes with dates because it's a lucky omen of sorts, in a good way. Like, what's a lucky omen? Like a butterfly flying into your home. Isn't it supposed to bring good news or something? Something like that. These things that we believe in, eh? Huh? Haggis, living off neeps and tatties and drinking the water from Loch Ness. I mean, come on, next you'll be telling me there's a monster in the waters and people come from all over the world to get a possible sighting. I mean, how weird would that be? There can't possibly be a Loch Ness monster. That's ridiculous, it's absurd. It's the Photowalk, a show for hikers, walkers and photographers of whatever kind and experience. A show for those who find escapism and peace away from the noise of this world, putting miles under our feet and making a picture or two to remind us of where those footprints were made. I haven't made many pictures myself today. Note to self, make a few more while, as I promised you, a special guest, they're all special, Neil, I know, makes a return in just a moment because it's the first Friday of the month and so it is assignment time. Now, first up we need a Caught My Eye recipient of the show flask for September's assignment and it's going to be this month, loose drum roll, Gert Jan Cole. Now, I think it's Gert with a silent G, but when I say that, it comes out, well, out of my mouth, it comes out as Yurt, which is something for sleeping in, isn't it? A big building or something, a yurt. Anyway, Gert Jan Cole. There we go, I've done it, I think. For your above and beyond piece, though they're all fabulous this month, they really are. The assignment for September was tricky to make a photo story with 15 or so pictures. It was a challenging one, and you rose to it. Those that joined in, you rose to it, and I've maybe another one to upload that's just come in. But Gert's photo story of the craftswoman who makes harps was a great piece. And you did 2 extra things. You recorded the sounds of her working, so that was good, and then you made a dialogue piece that made it, well, a complete rounded feature of audio and pictures. So the famous, not so famous hot and cold flask, hot at the moment really for those in the Northern Hemisphere, that's what we need. We'll be heading to the Netherlands land. Now, this month, it's being set by the fashion and portrait photographer Craig Fleming, who was on the show about a month or so back. Probably 2, actually. Episode 390. That's more than a month. And one of his personal projects, was we eulogised, really, didn't we, about having personal projects, was, although I think there's a commercial side to this as well, was portraits of Britons. I'll leave a link, which, to be fair, was, I suppose, part commissioned in places by the looks of it. But regardless of that, it was all about soccer or the beautiful, or football, or the beautiful game, as it's colloquially known. In some people's eyes, because I know it's not so beautiful in other people's eyes. But that doesn't matter, not for this particular exercise, this particular assignment. Grassroots, semi-pro, fully pro. What is a chair? Sorry, breaking off for a second. Why do people do this? Somebody's just left a chair here, in the middle of nowhere. I mean, I suppose somebody's just dumped it off their barge, I suppose. Can't think of anybody walking along miles along a footpath and just leaving a chair. It's absurd. Football back on track, Neil. Back in the room. 3, 2, 1. Back in the room. Oh, on that note, Paul McKenna, who is known on both sides of the Atlantic, certainly in the UK. I worked with Paul, and he's a hypnotist. That's why the 3, 2, 1 back in the room thing reminded me. But he's worked with execs, CEOs, people that have got all sorts of mental issues, actually, mental health issues. He's worked with them. He's world known, is our Paul, and he's a friend of mine of old. Not quite so sure that I'd be on his friends list. I don't know. I worked with him. We were fairly tight, I suppose, when I worked at Radio 1 at the BBC. And so he's going to come on a show soon. Different kind of interview, but I think it'll be fascinating. Where were we? Oh, yes, football. Yes, and we've come out of the wonderfully successful Women's World Cup, of course, which I watched on holiday with my family. My wife, Sam, she is big into football. She plays football, and she coaches girls football, and she absolutely adores the sport. Went to watch, was it last weekend? Yes, it was, Arsenal. They had a big, it was a women's, Arsenal women's team, and they were playing Liverpool. Now, they were expected to win this. I think some people thought it might be a bit of an easy stroll in the park, so to speak, but they lost 1-0. But Sam said the atmosphere at the stadium, it was entirely different to when she's been to see the men's game. And it was a real carnival party, family atmosphere. 55,000 people. It's the biggest attended Women's League match. Very proud of that was our Sam. And I'm looking forward to going back and seeing a few more matches over the winter. So, yeah, the beautiful game, football, soccer. And that's the assignment. This is Craig's assignment for the month. It's either going to be music to your ears or a challenge that will be equally as interesting from the eyes of somebody who has not the least bit of interest in the game. So that's my way of saying, if you follow football or don't follow football, it doesn't really matter, because this gives you an opportunity to show us your perspective of the game. Good luck. Here's Craig Fleming.
The Photowalk assignment.
So, Craig, an assignment. And actually an assignment that initially I was worried that quite a large proportion of our audience would not necessarily understand or be into. Then I realised just how patronising that was, because the beautiful game, as we're calling this assignment, and I'll let you tell us what you're looking for. It's a huge growing game. I know it's called soccer in different parts of the world, but it's an international language. What was it Bill Shankly said? Football's not just a matter of life and death. It's more important than that, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's an international language. So come on then, assignment to do with football, soccer.
A football portrait or a soccer portrait.
Yeah. Are you talking about while the game is playing, or of a portrait of somebody?
It could be anything. So it could be a portrait, it could be an action shot, it could be a screwed up ticket on the floor. Could be anything.
Now you're talking. So when we talked on one of our interviews, one of our pieces, I was talking about Mr. Sausage Roll, who you thought was the mascot at our local club. But there probably is one somewhere. But he's just this character that comes to football matches and sits there in the front row of the local non-league team and just eats his sausage rolls out of this big, deep blue. It's blue Tupperware. Look, I'm remembering the colour of the Tupperware as well. That's how much I've looked at him.
Is it themed towards the team?
No, not at all. No, it's the wrong colours. But he eats his sausage rolls, watches the match, goes home disappointed every single time. But he's had a few good sausage rolls, or a box full. But he would make a good portrait.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyone involved in the game, or going to the game, or playing in the game, or it doesn't even have to be a portrait of a person, does it? It could be anything.
So what's the, because this beautiful game project that you're working on doesn't really have, it has no rules. Is there what's the strangest picture so far that this is almost like asking a photographer, what's your favourite picture? What's the strangest picture that you've made so far for that project?
It's the football that was smashed onto the spiky fence. I just read into it that it was someone at the steelworks playing football in the lunch hour, kept kicking the ball over into someone's garden, and that irate gardener with his, smashed up peas, has got the ball and just like said, when they said, "Can we have our ball back, mister?" He's just basically smashed it onto this spike and said, "Yeah, here you go.
Yeah,
There's your ball.
Yeah, enjoy it.
Game over."
So the beautiful game. It seems like a nice, simple assignment, but you can be really creative and have fun with this in all the different football, soccer languages around the world.
Yeah, it's wide and varied, isn't it?
The Photowalk assignment.
Good luck with the assignment, and my thanks to Craig Fleming. And as Craig said, it doesn't have to be a portrait of a person. I mean, we've used he used the word portrait. Portraits can be many things. I believe they can be. I'm not just shoehorning that, by the way. I'm drawn to pictures that I've made of footballs, the many footballs I see in the canal, or even a wedding picture that I made. I think I may have talked about this one before, of one of the many penalty shootouts England have lost at a Euro or World Cup tournament. And the photograph I made, it was a picture of abject horror in everybody's faces as England lost the penalty shootout. Practically the entire wedding was sat in one of the rooms, probably where the music was going to be, and they were all sat on chairs watching the football match. I know you're going to say, "What a wedding, get a life." But to this wedding, that was their life for all sorts of reasons. But the horror in their faces as the penalty was missed. Well, who was it missed by? I don't recall now, but anyway, there was about, 50, 60 guests in the room, and a chef waiting to serve the wedding breakfast. Or in happier times of a few years ago, one of the aunties, I photographed an auntie celebrating in a very forthright fashion, if you know what I mean, on the top of a picnic table in the garden of where the wedding was on FA Cup final day. So good luck. Go look for a one-picture story. This is a one-picture story that celebrates, or doesn't necessarily celebrate, that shows the game of football stroke soccer. The one that draws our eyes will win the new style, famous not so famous show flask. Keeps coffee warm on those brisk Sunday mornings, watching your daughter or son play football on a field that seems to have a tornado ripping across toward your face at -3 degrees. Good luck. stories@photowalk.show is our email address. So if you're sending your pictures in for anything, including the assignments, then that's the address to send them into. Barnes, don't jump in there. That's a fast-flowing river, that one. Yes, you are well advised. Step away from the fast-flowing river. Right, where do we go? We have a fascinating letter, actually, from Eric Jacobi Peterson on the best remedy against anxiety. But if you don't mind, Eric, with a K, I'm going to hold on to that for a couple of weeks. It's quite a long letter, and I want to do justice to what you've sent in. So I'll do a couple of postcards. A brace is two, isn't it? Yes, a brace of postcards. A brace of Wish You Were Here's. Caroline Burke, first of all. Actually, this isn't really a postcard, he says, correcting himself, because there's a few images. So postcard text, definitely. A slightly larger gallery, which will be on the show page. Hello, Neil. Hope you're well. I just wanted to share some pictures I took of my trip to London last weekend. I had the best time visiting Covent Garden and Leek Street Tunnel to see the graffiti. I love the city. Lived there for a year when I was 20. I've visited many times, but this was the first time I've taken photos manually with a decent camera, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thanks so much for your hard work. No, thank you, Caroline, for listening and creating such enjoyable and informative content. Well, the content, informative or otherwise, is really sparked from your letters. No letters, no content, he says. Ting! Looking at you over my imaginary bifocals, waiting for your letter. Caroline, I've popped the pictures on the show page today. They are super, so thank you so much about it. I do like a graffiti picture, actually. There's... I'm going to be talking about this on the Extra Mile this coming show, episode 57, aren't we at now, with the Extra Mile? So I'll not say too much here, but I went to, it's obviously a street called Trafalgar Street in Brighton, and somebody's written over, they've graffitied over it, there's the irony, and they've called it Grafalgar Street. It's like a graffiti mecca. It is. It's a whole street, both sides of this. It's a sort of back street with car parks and back entrances to people's houses. And every wall, every bit of real estate along this street has been graffitied on. It's been graffitied well. The artwork is really good. So I'll talk about it more on the extra mile, my trip to Brighton. I tell you what, though, I'll never be parking in the Lanes car park again. Whoa! What? I mean, what was it? 31 quid for 5 hours or something like that. It was an enormous charge. It was like the sort of charges I get when I go to London. You know, if I could really invent the time travel machine, I'd go back and buy a whole load of land and wait for the invention of the combustion engine. I think it was, I mean, honestly. Barnes, this way, come on, this way. I don't know where you're going, but that's not really your way. And then here's one from Paul Hughes. Now, this is a vertical postcard, which counts, although they're easier really for the show page when they're horizontal. But it doesn't matter. This is a great picture, and that's all that counts. He says, using the word twice in a sentence, go to the back of the class. I have to say, though, in my postcard rotary holdy thingy in my dream coffee shop, this is really going to cause problems, isn't it, really? Because it's got, well, they only ever have landscape holders, don't they? The postcard holders in shops and coffee shops. So you're going to have coffee shop guests getting crick necks, leaning over 90 degrees anti-clock. We'll have litigation, so we will, Barnes. We'll have those ambulance chasing lawyers saying, you've cricked my client's neck. They only really wanted an oat milk cappuccino with chocolate sprinkles in the shape of a Leica M6. You've cricked their neck, you have. That's going to cost you $5,000. Enough for another Leica then. Hi Neil, here is my wish you were here from an early morning photo walk. We are in Croatia. Music to my ears. Absolutely love Croatia. Travelling from Split to Helsa on Hvar Island, I hope I've got those right. Then Korčula and finishing in Cavtat near Dubrovnik. It's such a wonderful place, you're not wrong there. Feels like miles from home and definitely the type of place you can really wish you are here. This morning I left the family in bed for a walk along the harbour to the breakwater. Saw this shot of a lone yacht moored overnight in the still waters of the inlet. The slight cloud, there seems to be a mist there as well actually, the slight cloud cover was very peaceful, so I was aiming for a smooth minimalist look and a little serenity. This was shot in black and white on my XT30 Mark II. Is it Mark II? I don't know much about the 30 actually, but I like the blue Snapseed filter to give it that extra sea feel, and it does that perfectly. Looking forward to another week of sun and lots more photo walking. I'm jealous. I wish I was there. All the best, Paul Hughes. Paul, it is perfection. It really is. And because I believe this is perfectly plausible and possible, I can hear the silence in your picture. So very much spot on. I'll put it on the show page. I'm sure you'll appreciate what I'm saying when you go and see the photograph for yourself. Right. Part 2 of my chat now with my guest, Kamal X. I think I've probably given too many clues to this metaphorically, geniusly made-up word now, titled Project Black Astronaut, now a book. So I'll make way for Kamal to share the why of what I think has been both a cathartic process and historically an important one as well. Here's Kamal X, Part 2.
Well, let's talk about the book. Black Astronaut is described as an extraordinary collection of powerful images that tell the stories of the everyday people behind the sensationalized headlines, a nuanced representation of the new Black America. Living, loving, fighting for a better world in difficult times. I know the book became a mission, and it was this sort of emergence from COVID, and of course the dramatic circumstances surrounding George Floyd's murder. But it's also a book about love and hope, isn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Where does the astronaut bit come in?
Yeah, great question. So like I said, when I was in Oakland and I was stuck in lockdown, when I had to go outside and it was like a whole decision of like, you got to go all the way, no fear. That's kind of where it actually spawns from, because the way I look at an astronaut, I see an astronaut as someone that goes into space, right? And you have this protective suit on. You're in an environment that nothing about that environment makes sense to you. Your body cannot deal with it. That's why you need the protective, and you're going and exploring.
Yeah.
So in terms of COVID being in the air, in terms of having all those masks on, gloves, goggles, and all this other stuff, and then actually stepping outside my apartment and feeling like America wasn't the America I knew. I saw so much that was just I did not recognize the country that I knew a couple months ago. Like fighting and discourse is crazy. And I felt like I was in a new world. So that's where I kind of came up with the concept of Black Astronaut, to just use it as a metaphor for what it felt like for me going into these spaces and taking pictures, whether it's at, Black Lives Matter things, or if it's going to the women's rights things, or if it's going to the election issues or the anti-vax. All these things were like worlds that were like, I'm just like, wow. And I feel like it was, again, way different from what you saw on television. And I was pushing myself, challenging myself to really go and, again, not be judgmental to what I was seeing. Be honest about what I'm seeing. Don't tailor it to a certain way of thinking that I'm trying to push, but really be honest about what is happening outside and show it. And in a lot of ways, I felt like I became my own version of an astronaut. And I also used the concept because I wanted, again, to be something that, one, I think it looks amazing. It looks kind of cool. And then the other part of it is I want people to use it as a way to like inspire other people too moving forward. When people look in this book, I want them to reflect and remember those moments, learn about my story. And ultimately, I'm hoping that they get inspired to think about themselves as their own astronaut and how they can, because we're all facing things that are uncomfortable to us. We're all going into environments that don't make sense to us, or we don't fit in, or, so using that way of looking at the suit as a way of just going towards your dreams, your destiny, your vision. That's my ultimate hope with this book, and that's what the whole concept Black Astronaut comes from.
So we're all astronauts, really, aren't we? Whenever
we are. We are. If you think about it.
Yeah, there's other astronauts in the book, though, aren't there? I mean, I saw a young astronaut in there. Who's that? Oh,
there's all types of pictures going on. So, yeah, I did a nice little montage of different people and stories wearing the astronaut suits, so it's not just me.
Yeah.
That is a great friends of mine's sons.
Right.
Chris and her sons, and we got together, and they were really excited to do it. Anything kids with astronaut outfits, they for some reason light up. Yeah. So that was like a very easy shoot. They were having the time of their lives, but they didn't even know. I was telling the mom, like, I think these pictures are actually going to be pretty impactful. Yeah. But she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then fast forward, when the book gets published, she's to this day is like in awe. Like, I can't believe this. I'm like, yeah, you never know. An image it's just so funny how sometimes people don't understand the power of things that we can look at as simple, but they really can translate in powerful ways if you know what you're doing and the intention is there,
120 weeks to shoot. It's in 6 parts, isn't it? Take me through the reason for laying it out that way and why there's 6 parts.
Okay, the reason is because, again, I was going to so many different planets. Like, if you look at this figuratively, like I was going into different avenues of what was going on with the rage outside, And when I was looking at all the photos, I had a decision to make. I was like, you can either just make this the Black Lives Matter thing. You can go into maybe the women's rights, but then there was also this underbelly of like, which I call a deep space chapter, where like there was a lot of people that were rebelling against the laws of being in lockdown, having parties, underground vibes and situations like that. So there were so many things that I took a picture of, and I was like, I can't take this stuff out because it's a part of what I saw. And I know if I did a book that was maybe just a representation of like a report of what I saw, like, this is what happened through 2020.
Straight photojournalism, you mean?
Yeah, but this is more about me and my story and what I saw. And I wanted to be as honest and open about all the avenues that I saw. And then I was just coming up with very interesting concepts. Like when I think of the Big Bang Theory, like I was like, wow, Big Bang. If you look at that and you think about what George Floyd happened and what happened outside, that seems like a very similar, a way you can use something that's more of a, astro vibe to use something that's more relatable to something that was going on. The first chapter, which is very meaningful to me, is Mothership. and that's being stuck in the house doing lockdowns and showing the emptiness of outside.
What a great metaphor.
And also, it's so many words that kind of go very hand in hand with what was going on. And it's just, again, I think it's a creative way to look at things. And I think it, again, expands our minds, because that's also what I want us to do. I don't want us to get too caught up in just what happened in the past. We need to learn from the past, but I think we also need to be going towards the future and open up our minds. So that's a lot of where the terminology, and I think it's a very interesting walkthrough.
What was the biggest challenge in putting the project together? I mean, this is your second book. I'm really interested. I didn't know this until we chatted just briefly before the before we went live. I pressed the big red button, as I call it. But it's actually published by a British company, isn't it?
Yeah, Carpet Bombing Culture. Gary's amazing. I think Gary Shove. Yeah. He's amazing. He's been a great help. Very supportive. Very believes in the project wholeheartedly. There were other deals on the table, and I really felt the best situation with him, for sure. And he's been great all the way through. A Quest Supreme was a very raw, very I'm learning photography as I'm creating that book, and there's a beauty in that in itself. So this being the second project, it was making sure you're getting better. So really doing the work in terms of researching, finding out a lot of information from older photographers, figuring out how they've done it and making sure you're not just copying something, making sure I'm finding my own voice by giving homage to, researching and taking the time to understand. So there was a lot of footwork that went into my eye as a photographer before I went out there, because I was I needed to elevate. I didn't want to just do another book that looked the same. I wanted to show that, okay, that was my first book. This one should feel okay. This isn't the person that's learning as he's going. This is his voice. Yeah. And that was the thing that I was really pushing for. And I did that through a lot of hard work. I didn't realize how physical photography was until this book. It is a lot of hard work, and you have to sacrifice your body. And I'm 6'5", so there's a lot of getting low is always a thing, getting angles and things of that nature on the knees and the back is tough.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. There's a photographer, Tom Stoddart, the late Tom Stoddart, who we've, a friend of the show, I like to think, who said, is a great photojournalist, very celebrated one, who said, you can tell a good photographer by the state of his or her trousers or pants, as you would call it, because if they're worn through, then they're finding the angles. They're good.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. I like that, because it is very true. I tell people that and they never believe. I'm it's physical. Yeah. You need to be in shape. You need to be stretching if you can, or just be. It takes all of that. So. Yeah, I think that was the most challenging part, but also, coming up with the concept also too, because I knew I wanted to do something different. I knew I wanted to stand out in some kind of way, and I wanted to be honest about who I was. And there was a lot of people looking at me crazy for coming up with that kind of to bring those worlds together. And I was like, nope, I'm doing it.
No, I think
I'm going all the way.
It works for me that at the time that these were all these sort of crazy planets that we were investigating for the first time ever. And as an astronaut, it's a very different way to look at it. And I can't think of a single other project that feels like this. There were plenty of photojournalism projects at the time. Of course there were. But in this kind of concept, being an astronaut, investigating these different planets, these different worlds, really very different.
I appreciate that. I received that. Thank you so much. That's a very great compliment. Thank you very much.
It really is. There's a picture in there suggesting you don't need to be a slave to the algorithm. I'm not sure if that's a picture near the end of the book or not. It feels like it should be, because I think a lot of that time we were slaves to what was served up to us as news.
Oh well, I use it. And don't let it use me. Yeah. Okay. And I think that's the whole point of what I'm saying. Well, some of what I'm saying with don't be a slave to algorithm, just understanding from seeing all those 6 chapters and going into those 6 realms of what was going on in my life and in the world around me. I was able to see things that were it showed me just how impactful the phone has become in terms of ideology, in terms of outrage, in terms of what we choose to believe and what we don't believe. And it's I'm not seeing the conversation that used to be had, or when I was growing up, it felt like there was more open-mindedness. I'm seeing so much stark anger from side to side and no gray area. And it was very confusing to me, because I just, in my heart, I'm this doesn't feel right. What are we doing? We're one country. We can have different views, but why are we not even having conversation anymore? And why are we so angry? You know, and I just felt like I just wanted to create an image that would kind of wake people up to the possibility that maybe you might be too much into your phone and the algorithm. Maybe your thoughts might not be as much as yours as you think. Maybe it's time to take a break or give it a week, turn off the internet, take off whatever you need to do, because I just felt like there were so many times I was told things that it didn't make sense to me. Like I remember a prime example of a good friend of mine when they were saying defund the police, for example. And me I'm from Newark, New Jersey. This is a great lot of history, but also has its tough times in terms of urban crime and stuff like that. And I know for a fact how important police are. So I'm not thinking of defunding the police when it relates to people living in areas where they really need the police. So when this friend was, having a discussion with me about, we need to defund the police, and I was like, I don't believe in that. And we got in an argument, and I had to explain to her, and she lives in a nice area, safe area. I'm like, your perspective, and I believe you believe this is to be true. I'm not blaming you for that, but maybe you need to ask some more questions and have some more understanding of what you're saying, because there's another group of people that really need the police that look like me, by the way. And if there ain't no police there, who's going to stop the crime? Who's going to help that aunt, that grandmother, that older person? There's so much that goes into it. And that's just one example of the kind of conversations I was beginning to have that let me know, okay, I think we're in a space now where people mean well, but they're not doing the work to really understand. They're not actually talking to people. They're not actually going outside and seeing for themselves. They're just going by what you see on whatever your news source is, whatever you see on your timeline. And that's people's realities today. And I've had to, take real moves to like take myself out of that, like taking Instagram off my phone and only using it when I go on my computer, for example. Right. Like, and that also helps me as a creative, like as a photographer, you should be trying to create something that's who you are and different and unique as it relates to who you are. And I think if you're sitting there looking at images all day, how much of that is you? Yeah. I liked when, especially with photography, I love discovering, I love finding things out. I love asking questions and learning new things. And it's becoming more and more like people are on a job interview and they're just saying, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that.
Well, photography is a great curiosity passport, isn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%.
And that can be the good thing about social media, because you are curious. But yeah, Kamal, you need to come and talk to my kids about social media, I think.
Listen, there's a line, and I get it, and I think this is a bigger conversation because this is just my piece on it that I want to do to just. Yeah. As it relates to this whole, like even thinking out of the box and doing Black Astronaut versus just doing America in Crisis, like it's like choosing to look into being who you are. Yeah. It's okay to be a part of groups. It's okay to be like, for the cause, but you also have a voice too. And it's okay to lean into that, even if it doesn't necessarily fit into the ideologies that people put on you, and I see less and less people want to stand up for who they truly are. And I think the kids, hopefully, I think they'll get to that age, they get older. They start to have questions. It's like, it's okay. Ask them.
How on earth are you going to follow up Black Astronaut?
Oh,
it seems to me to be, you must have been asked this question already, but you've invested so much. I mean, it's a world crisis, really, that you lived through to make this work. And God knows we don't want another world crisis like that. Although sadly, we will continue to get stories like the terrible murder of George Floyd. And also we have another presidential election coming up. Let's not get political.
It's coming. It's coming.
But there could be more down the line to come. So
it may be.
I don't know what your next project will be, but how do you follow up something so clever as Black Astronaut? That's
a great question. And honestly, I've been asking myself that. No one's asking me, but I've been asking myself that.
Well, let me be the first then, apart from you. I'll be the second.
And honestly, I think I've actually figured out the next project. And again, it's going inward, like I get you. I don't think for me, and I actually learned this Prince. I don't know. Prince is one of my favorite artists of all time. Yeah. He's another one, like Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, and Prince. Those are my guys, right? So he always would talk about like his past works and like how he wouldn't live into them to the point where he's living in the past. Like, I need to keep creating. I got to keep moving. I got to keep going, keep moving forward. And I feel like I kind of take a little bit of that in terms of how I'm using Black Astronaut. It's like I put everything into that, and now once it's gone, I'm letting it go. Yeah. And now it's like, okay, where are you now? What do you feel now? What really pulls at your chords to a point where you're going to maybe not invest the same kind of emotion, but it's still just as intense, you know? Because that's what I kind of feel the next project is going to be, something that is going to be very intense also, but it's not the same kind of language, if that makes sense. So it's like a new energy that I'm really looking forward to, because, you know, this artistry thing is such a beautiful journey, because we don't know what's coming. And that's the beauty of the challenge and the curiosity. So I think it's just being okay with leaving that, letting that go, and just continue to being honest with who I truly am and just seeing what happens.
Well, I know you're not at all like the person I'm just about to give as an example, but it's but what, 3 weeks that I sat on the shores of a famous loch in Scotland called Loch Ness, which is well known for its monster that doesn't or does exist. Who knows? But I met with a guy that has been there best part of 3 decades. He travelled there when he was 28. He got in an old library van and he drove up to Loch Ness, and he decided to live at the side of the loch and look for the monster. That was going to be his life's challenge. Wow. And he said at the end of our very brief interview, I wasn't blessed to have had as much time with him as I've had with you today, and I would love to have talked with him for longer that day, but I remember him saying, you know, life's an adventure. I don't really know where it's going to go. Maybe the monster will show. Maybe it won't, but I'll enjoy the journey.
That's beautiful.
Well, the second book is out, Black Astronaut. I'll link to the book. The pre-sales look like they're doing very, very well indeed. I wanted to take you right back to the start of our conversation, really, and mention Drew once more, your friend who has now passed. What do you think Drew would have made of all this? Your photographic life, your book, your travels around the world.
Oh man, I think Drew in my heart is so happy and is in celebratory mode for everything he's seen me do. He was one of the first artists I ever got connected with, cool with, because he was a designer. And he actually made some real strong headway in that. We're getting like real deals and celebrities wearing his stuff on television. He was doing the thing, man. And this is like 25, 26 years old, you know? So I seen him lay the blueprint in terms of what it means to be creative and like getting the business together and making something happen. So I think I'm an extension of that for sure, in terms of wanting to do something creative, because I did want to do something creative because I felt like it would also bring me close to him. Yeah. And so seeing where things have been and the experiences I've had, and just my work being shown in so many places, like I know he's happy. Like in my heart, I believe there will be a day we'll see each other again, and it's going to be just a big embrace and like, yo, thank you. Because I thank him with everything I do, because he's laid so much. That friendship, again, has been my greatest inspiration, and it probably always will be, you know, and I just want to do my part too.
And my thanks to Kamal X. We didn't end with the usual why today, the why question, the why. The big 3-letter question that often is the end of my interviews, for very good reason. I did suggest perhaps by what I said in my introduction that we would, but the why question is on the extra mile this week. And that's it for today on our Photowalk. If you can't wait until next Friday and want to walk a little further together, then the extra mile edition, we're mentioning it now, is number 57, EM57. It's waiting for you. The Extra Mile is part of our private Patreon channel, where our wonderful community of supporters, our walkers, our photographers who want to help keep this podcast here week after week after week after week, make a modest, a generous monthly or annual contribution. So thank you to those that do that, and thank you to those that are thinking, do you know what, I do want this podcast to stay. I rather enjoy it as company. I might become part of this Extra Mile community to help out a bit. Thank you to you in advance if you're thinking of doing that. This week, Extra Miler Sean Edwards joins me as we walk in Brighton. He's got just the best Kickstarter project to tell you about, which is, using this word again, is it the second, perhaps third, maybe even fourth time in the show today? Capital, underline, bold this letter, G. Genius, G for genius. It really is. You'll love I think you will love the idea that he shares. And as I say, Kamal returns too for a short answer to his why.
On this week's Extra Mile.
Dang, I wish I would have went all the way. I don't want to have any of those regrets because I've been at the station where you're about to get dropped off, if you know what I mean. Like, I've almost not been here. So getting that close to death really wakes you up to the gift of life. And it inspires me today to just go all the way in whatever that is and not be afraid to not think too much about the outcome, that you ignore who you truly are. Because I think that's something I notice with a lot of people in my age range. And there's this sense of like, I want to be successful, I want to be comfortable, I want to be all these things, but their heart isn't in it.
The first 5 minutes of the show is available for free, so click the link on the website, the orange button there, support the show for the Extra Mile. Go to photowalk.show for that. And I mentioned too, actually, for our monthly live in Vision Zoom show. You try saying that quickly, which happens, well, usually it's on the first Tuesday of the month, but the next one is, if you're listening to this on the day of release anyway, is next Tuesday, or this coming Tuesday. Our PS to the show is to come, but before that, we need a play-out song just to make some final frames to that song that gives us an opportunity to walk a bit further, think about what's been said today, and make some photographs. And it's from Space Doves. It's another of my favourites, actually. It's a tonal favourite, really, a very shoehorned one in some respects today, perhaps in terms of the title and the name of the band, Astronauts and Space, and a title called Moon. But I like it, and I'd like to play you it as the play-out song for today. This one is Space Doves, a song called Moon. That's Space Doves and Moon. Fantastic. Right, final sketchbook image. Actually, the sun's just come out, so we did have a blur sky. We've had a blur sky for this entire walk, but the sun's just come out. It's still a bit featureless, but there's I think I can vignette through the trees here the sun. I think I'm able to do that. I'll shoot F8 so I get sort of a sunburst. Here we go. Oh, another one of those. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. Famous phrase from my dear mum. We'll see. Can we go to the park? We'll see. Can we have fish fingers for tea? We'll see. Can I do the hoovering? Yep. No worries. Just a few closing thoughts before the PS, the postscript. My sincere thank you to you if you are about to become an extra miler. Thank you so much for helping to build this community. A favour if you will. If you can share the show, fabulous. There's a way to do that on the show page each week. Just press a button. If you're logged into one of your socials, it will all miraculously happen seamlessly, so it will. Or if you're listening on a podcast player app and you're not yet subscribed or following, if you could press that subscribe button, like and subscribe, as they say, then that would be fantastic. Right, a postscript for the show. Today, it's from Malcolm X, because speaking to Kamal, I was inspired to go and read some of his messages. And when I say some, there are, of course, many. And, I found this, which is about togetherness. It's very much a PS that refers, I think, to a subject we talk often about, that being mental health, well-being, positive well-being. With this being key, I think, to what is this thing that we have here, which I feel is very, very precious, and that's community. So these are the words from Malcolm X for today's PS. When I is replaced by we, even illness becomes wellness. Come on, Barnes. Come on. Let's go find some grub. Come on. You know you want to. I know. Would you like something? Come on. Have you got stick? Where's stick? Find stick. Where's stick gone? Where's stick?
The Photowalk is a Loading Zone production.